So today we are going to be talking about racism in China. This is a question I get so often, like a lot. So we're just gonna go ahead and get right into it. As a quick introduction, this is Shanice. So my name is Shanice and I live here in Shanghai, China. And I've been here for 8 years and I speak fluent Mandarin Chinese. So before I go ahead and talk about my experiences, I just want to give a quick disclaimer, and I always do this before I talk about my experiences of racism in China, because I don't want people to take my experience and say this is the experience of all Black people. So the first thing is that I am American. This plays a huge role, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, especially when it comes to job opportunities. The next one is that I'm light-skinned, I'm female, I have a hair texture that is acceptable to Chinese people, and I speak Mandarin Chinese. So I think these are all really important things to kind of keep in mind as I'm going along. So regarding racism in China, we're gonna talk about it in a few different blocks. So one is going to be jobs, so job opportunities. We're gonna be talking about colorism, beauty standards, blackface, and my own experiences. So what do I think? What is my overall impression of this? So let's go over jobs. So when it comes to jobs, you would basically see, and you still see it to this day, before it used to actually say white only, like you would see it right there. They only wanted white people. Now they say European, and no, European doesn't mean a Black person from Britain is okay. We all know what European only means. It means that they're looking for white people. So I've had experiences where I did apply for jobs and they would say, wow, awesome, you fit the criteria, please send a picture. And I was like, oh God, you send the picture and they just ghost you. They never get back to you. Also, there are times where I applied for a job, it would require a profile with my picture. And so I applied for the job and they would never add me, they'd never get back to me. So why do Chinese people want white faces to teach them? Well, because a lot of Chinese people still associate whiteness with the West. So when they see other people who are maybe Black or other ethnicities, they will be confused. They'll be like, this person isn't, like, they're not gonna teach me the most authentic English. In addition to that, Black people, we are known for our beautiful Black accents. We have code switching and all of these things where they kind of feel like this is how we will talk when we teach, and we'll teach their kids like improper English. We're not gonna teach them standard, good old fashioned American or British English, whichever country they want their English to be taught from, if you're not white. So there's that. How I feel about this, it's annoying. It is annoying. However, I will say in my experience, the type of people who expect English to only come from white faces, these type of people, these type of institutions that push this narrative and they accept it, they tend to be like lower class. Sorry if that offends anybody, but it's just true. They tend to not be as educated, they don't know as much about the world, and they're not as internationally focused. So schools like this, they're fine with hiring any type of white face, regardless of their accent, regardless of their ability to speak or teach English. Actually, they prefer to hire some of the people from like Eastern European countries because they can pay them lower salaries, but they can still tote around, hey, look, we have this white person who can teach your kid English and charge a lot of money for it. So there's that. So the schools that are fine with hiring Black people and other ethnicities to teach English or to teach subjects in English, these schools tend to be more internationally focused. And this is a good thing because they tend to have higher salaries, and the types of kids and parents that they attract are ones who have been abroad and tend to have more money, to be quite honest. So when it comes to jobs and salaries, I know many dark-skinned Black people who have a high salary. It is possible. And you just need to know who to talk to. I would say as a solution to this, if you are interested in coming to China, is find your Black communities, find groups to talk to, and figure out, which schools are hiring. So let's go ahead and talk about beauty standards. We all know this story, right? The darker skinned people are out on the fields, the lighter skinned people stayed at home. So that's how we have all of these standards of beauty in China. European standards of beauty has kind of been an addition on to that already, right? So white people are heavily praised. I did have to deal with feeling very self-conscious when I first got to China. The first time I ever came to China was in 2010. The reason I was self-conscious is because like really mediocre looking white people, I'm sorry to say it, I have to say it, really mediocre looking white people were getting praised like they were gods. And I was just sitting there like, this person doesn't look that good at all. Like, It messes with you when you're so used to like, so you have certain standards of beauty in America and you know what beauty is, and then you come to China and it's just like the bar is so low for white people. I'm sorry, it really is. There is a saying in China that is white skin hides 1,000 blemishes or 1,000 flaws. So it's kind of the idea that as long as you have white skin, I mean, they agree, if you have white skin and you're not that attractive, the white skin kind of balances that out. Now, they definitely will praise darker skin, Black women, but it's sort of like the darker you are, the more exceptionally beautiful you have to be for them to kind of praise you. Because, I mean, it's the same in America, right? Like, oh, you know, you're Black, but you're beautiful. Or like, you know, you're beautiful for a dark-skinned girl, right? Like, it's the same. It's global, yay. So yes, so I've gotten the backwards compliments, which is, oh my God, you're Black, but you're so beautiful. Like, are you sure you're Black? No, they don't say that, but you know what I mean? Like, those type of compliments, and then I have to sit there and like educate people. At the end of the day, you just have to accept when you come into a different country, there's different standards of beauty. My thoughts on that are just don't take it too seriously. Honestly, being in China, it really teaches you to love you for you. Like you really have to get to a point of being comfortable with yourself where comments just don't faze you. Blackface in China and jokes about Black people. This is the most annoying for me because, so when I would teach kids, I would try to kind of show Black people, like I try to make my lessons as diverse as possible. So if I'm teaching them about different people, like, you know, the word teacher or firefighter or whatever, I would include pictures of Black people, whether it's a Black woman or a Black man. And I kid you not, like 99% of the time, the kids would laugh. Like they would laugh just looking at a Black person. They would just think it's funny. And I would pick professional looking pictures of Black people. Like they're not doing anything crazy and they're not doing anything that would make you laugh. Just a woman. Like let's say you take a picture of me and I'm just there and they're just like, oh my God, teacher, it's you. Like, come on now. I know I'm not the only one this has happened to. So if this has happened to you, please let me know in the comments because I kind of want to vent about this right now. It's really annoying and part of it comes from blackface. Blackface is a thing in China when it comes to depicting Black people or African people as looking dumb, being stupid, being the comic relief. In general, in China, they use foreigners as comic relief, including white foreigners, but Black people were like clown comic reliefs. And I have watched some dramas with my boyfriend where we would see like how the Black characters were depicted in dramas and it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Like we're always like the thieves or like we steal or we like influence Chinese kids in a bad way. It's ridiculous. Again, I just started a conversation, you know, why is this funny? Like, can someone explain to me what is funny about this picture? And everyone's just silent because they don't really know how to answer the question. Honestly, they've been indoctrinated to find this type of stuff funny because generally the context that they see with Black people involves something that's funny. All right, so discrimination against Africans, yes, this is a thing. I honestly I can't remember anything where I've heard Chinese people talk negatively about Africa, but I do know that negative things get said. Definitely, they do associate Africa with poverty, AIDS, and all of this stuff. So for example, my boyfriend, who is ethnically Chinese, he would tell me about the difference between, so for example, I don't know much about sports, guys, so I might get this wrong, but in football, there's like different like cards that they pull. And so if it's a good card, they would call it an Ojo, which is European card. And if it's a bad card, they call it a Feijo. So Feijo Africa. So he said it's probably not just limited to sports, they probably do it in other things as well. So using Feijo Africa literally as an adjective to describe something that's bad and Ojo to describe something that is good. You can't make this stuff up. Your Chinese peers are gonna know more about racism than you, which is probably why whenever Chinese people talk to me about how racist Chinese people are, I'm always like, oh, I don't really have that experience, which I'll get into my experiences later. But when I think about it, Yeah, probably. I mean, there's probably Chinese people who say like really racist things all the time. So I have a friend and her roommate is black, and her neighbor who is Chinese would talk to her about her black roommate and say, oh, be careful, you know, they have AIDS and all of this ridiculous stuff. You will see videos that are trying to encourage, you know, the friendship between China and Africa. All right, so one of the first and only very racist experiences that I've had, which was literally not allowing me housing because I was black. Basically the time my boyfriend and I, we were looking for an apartment and we finally found a good one. So I had him go sign the contract with the landlord. I did not go with him. So at that time, the landlord came and talked to the agents, and for some reason, race was brought up. I'm not really sure why. So somehow my race was brought up, and he was like, I'm not, you know, I don't want to rent to black people, okay? And then he pointed to my boyfriend. He's like, and where are you from? Like, what part of China are you from? Or what part of China are your parents from? So he called me very flustered and he was like, I don't want this apartment anymore. He is discriminating against you being black. He's racist. And then he started asking where I'm from. And so apparently, I guess what had happened was the agents talked him into accepting the apartment deal. But he was like, no, you know, we're not taking it. So that happened. Okay, so like I said, that is a very rare experience. I'm only saying that because people ask about racism. So there you go. There's one experience for me. But in terms of my day to day, just going outside, buying groceries, talking to my neighbors, walking my dogs, I do not deal with racism. I just don't. And again, I speak fluent Mandarin Chinese. All I hear all day long is
你的中文说的可以啊，
是的，
待了多久了？
8年了。
that's it. Like that's like 90% of the conversations that I have with Chinese people. Like today I went to go get a smoothie and the woman asked, oh, you know, what type of smoothie do you want? I told her and she's like, wow, your Chinese is so good. And I was like, thank you. And she asked if I had a membership card and I said I didn't. And she's like, I'll swipe for you anyway, no problem. Like that's it. Like that's literally my day-to-day. Even when it comes to jobs, I mean, I've worked in a Bitcoin company, I've worked in translation companies. Like I worked in one company where I was basically a client for Alibaba. I've worked at like an AI and blockchain company where I did social media. Like they didn't really care about my race, at least not to the extent where they didn't hire me, okay? So I guess the point I'm trying to get at is being black, yeah, you're gonna have some ignorant comments. And I wanna stress ignorant. Yeah, so that's it. The reason I highlighted some of those other racist experiences is because they do exist and I'm not going to erase them just because I don't have many racist experiences here. But at the end of the day, like if you ask the average black person who lives in China what their life is like, a lot of them are not gonna say, oh my God, it's so racist. I need to go back to the US as fast as I can. They're just not gonna have it. Thanks for watching this video. If you are interested in hearing more about my experiences in China as a black person or just anything about being in China, feel free to leave a comment below. If you think I'm completely full of it and I said something that's completely wrong, you can also debate me in the comments. I'm totally fine with being called out. Just remember, these are my experiences. I did give several disclaimers, but yeah, that's about it. And I will hopefully post this episode. Oh yeah, and if you like the video, please like it because that makes me happy. And I know that you like the video and I'll make more like this video.